welcome you back to our program, Integrative Theology. Today we're going to continue in the fourth course, which is entitled Theosci Philosophy, and today's lecture will be the supplemental lecture, the first supplemental lecture, Three Foundations, or Three Foundational Sources of Knowledge. Let's dive right in. Again, I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves. When we consider Theosci philosophy, in the last segment, we broke down what the terminology meant constructively, and we've talked about taking three aspects of the terminology and turning it into a monadic, structured discipline. Again, monadic simply means it is one thing. And so in Theosci philosophy, we incorporate those three unique fields of understanding into a melded or a merged system that now becomes one discipline. Originally, we took in what we call the proology. Before we began to study, we had to come to realize what it was we wanted to study. And when we came to the aspect of what we wanted to study, we would also put together those things that would now cause an original system to appear, wherein the three became one, melded together, integrated together in a unique system that would take knowledge, perspectivize it through philosophy, and ultimately take it to the primus mens, or the first mind. And again, we talked about this in the last session, but we're going to deal with now how these three structured, these three melded, these three integrated sources of knowledge became one. Again, knowledge is simply knowing facts. Knowledge is knowing what is. It is the assessment of the mind to ascertain what is truly existent and those laws that cause those things to be existent. And so when we deal with knowledge, we deal with it from an epistemological point of view. The study of knowledge, where did it come from? Where did thinking originate? And so God, as being again the primus mens, the first thinker of the thought that he originated, sprang forth from the knowledge of himself, the knowledge of his desire, the knowledge of his will, and the knowledge of his purpose for his ex nihilic and his ex materialis, where he brought substance into existence, and where he took substance and he began to create or to fashion systems that would further his eternal purpose. And so the study of knowledge, understanding the mind of God, understanding what God desires to be, understanding the pursuit of God as he began to do his creative work. And so knowledge will encompass all that God knows. And because God is omniscient, then we have information, data that can be downloaded by God into our minds from here to perpetuum. And so the knowledge of God is inexhaustible. The knowledge of God, roughly, from our estimates, can only deal with what God knows, proposes, wills, and desires. And so we take all knowledge, all scientia, and because he is the original first thinker, we have to connect all knowledge, all laws, and all of those principles that keep the ontological reality operating back to God. And so scientia, knowledge, was the first clue. All knowledge ultimately will help you to understand God as creator. And so the next step was philosophia, Philosophy, then, the love of wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. Scripture tells us, with all thy getting, get an understanding. Understand the principles of knowledge and why those principles are in existence. Understanding the principles for the foundation of the ontological reality. What are the types of reality? There is physical reality, spiritual reality, and ultimate reality that flows into the context of God's mind. Now, we have to, again, understand that when we deal with God, we deal with a being who is the Spirit. He doesn't possess a spirit. He is a spirit. And the reality of spirit is that he is living intelligence that has all knowledge, has all power, and he's everywhere. Our minds cannot comprehend the existence or the eternal existence and the transcendence of this being that is before time, space, or various types of reality. And so, perspectivism, when we look at knowledge, we turn it. What does this mean for the cosmos? How is it related to cosmic law? How is it related to ontological reality, reality of the three versus of reality? And it corresponds with what the Bible calls the three heavens. Natural heaven, then the spatial or the cosmos or the cosmos, the cosmosian heavens where the universe and angels reside, and then finally the ultimate ontological reality. With the ultimate ontological reality comes now God as the first being, the first existence. And so we have natural, we have philosophical, where we turn cosmologically, ontologically, epistemologically, where we look into the origin of the foundations of knowledge, the origins of the purpose for God's knowledge. We look at the political, how should this be governed? We look at it from an aesthetic point of view or axiological point of view. What is the beauty of existence? And how would and should it be governed? What is the beauty and the reality of how something should be, the rightness, the appropriateness? Then we talk about, from the minciological point of view, or the mind, what is God's perspective of the mind? And so we incorporate every aspect of philosophy so we can now determine its place, its function in existence. And finally, we take knowledge, its perspectives, and we apply them to God or theology. Always remember, theology and theological approaches are not necessarily what God himself studied, but he gave man the ability to think and to construct knowledge in certain pathways or certain modalities. And knowledge should enable us to understand God, should enable us to have a full view of clarity from the human perspective, to understand that there is a creator, a first mover, a first thinker, he who is the creator, ex materialis and ex nihilo. And so, the three foundations of the one system, theosai philosophy, scientia, knowledge, philosophia, philosophy, and theos, logia, theology. We thank you for joining us. This is all the time we have. This has been our fourth class in integrative theology. This is the first supplemental lecture to Lecture 7, entitled From the Theosai Philosophy, and it is the three-tiered processes, the three-tiered knowledges that are in the composition of Theosophic philosophy. I thank you for being with us, and I thank you for your prayers. It has been a tedious week, doing many researches and many studies, and I think within the last 3 days I've had approximately maybe 4 hours of sleep. And so I solicit your prayers. And again, I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves. God bless you. Until the next time.